Connor O'Gara joined us live at the SEC Media Days last week. 1 week ago, he and Drew shook hands, looked at each other, and finally realized that the two of them don't dress alike very much.
Nope.
Connor, I think you kept the suit on. You kept various suits on, though, most of the week. Did you ever dress down by the end of the week, or did you keep the tie?
Did dress down. I did have by Wednesday, it was just collared shirt untucked. By Thursday, it was chambray shirt, white tee underneath, untucked with sneakers. So I did get to that point. It took me a few days, but look, I mean, you make that first impression with a suit, and then it kind of makes you known that, oh, hey, that guy can actually dress. He doesn't just live in his mom's basement. He lives in a house wherein he has his own office and everything, and he, can tie his shoes like a real adult. But, yeah, by the end of the week, I was dressing down.
Some of us still try to find shoes that you never have to tie. It just makes life a little bit easier sometimes. So I read your column about KJ Jefferson not getting much respect, and he's playing to that, and I think that's great. I actually didn't want him in the top three, in either of the top three teams, because I think that plays exactly to the way that he views himself too. But I read where, Tim Tebow's reasoning for why he didn't have KJ in his top five was more about the weapons around KJ, specifically wide receiver more than anything else is what it's got to be. And I'm seeing, a lot of people picking Arkansas second. You did. They end up picked third amongst SEC media members. Do you think that you're parsing very small pieces of teams when you're looking at the difference between second place and third place? I view if you pick Arkansas second, that means you think they're going to beat A&M. What is the difference between Arkansas and A&M? Is it receivers? Is this a reason why you'd knock Arkansas down a peg in the division standings, at least preseason?
Well, for what it's worth, I did look a certain Mr. Tebow in his eye and tell him that I disagreed with him about KJ and not having in his top five. I have KJ as my number 3 quarterback in the SEC. I thought he should have gotten all SEC love ahead of Will Levis. I totally understand the argument that it actually helps him to continue to get disrespected. That plays into this entire mindset that he's had throughout this offseason. But I look at Arkansas in the gap between 2 and 3 and say, all right, what do I have more confidence in over the duration of a year? I have more confidence in what Arkansas returns from an identity standpoint than I do A&M. What is A&M's identity? What are they going to be on offense? They're going to be a team that probably has to run the ball a lot. Devon Achane, in my opinion, is their best returning offensive player. We saw the development last week with Anaya Smith. With the arrest, we'll kind of wait and see what to make of that situation, what his suspension looks like. But this is a team that's starting a new quarterback. This is a team that on defense has a very new front seven that has a new defensive coordinator after Mike Elko left for Duke. So all of these different things. And, oh, by the way, Jimbo Fisher hasn't had a top 30 passing offense since Jameis Winston. So when I'm trying to figure out A&M's identity, yeah, they got the influx in talent. They just signed this historically great recruiting class, this number 1 class in America in 2022. But is that class going to make or break this team? Is that class going to have really a massive impact on a team that could be competing for a New Year's Six Bowl? In my opinion, probably not. Whereas Arkansas, I know what Arkansas is going to be. Arkansas is going to be one of, if not the best running teams in all of Power 5. They got a quarterback who can grind for you in multiple ways and can beat you with his arm and with his legs, downfield intermittent passing game. And I feel like this is a defense that I look at and say they should be better, despite the fact that they lost Grant Morgan, despite the fact that they lost Hayden Henry. I still think that they're going to be better with Jalen Catalon, bumper pulled back, the addition of Drew Sanders. It's been well documented. So all of these things, I think the gap is simply, I feel like I have a better idea that Arkansas can withstand the ebbs and flows of the SEC West than A&M does.
Mm-hmm. Now, Connor, what were some of the other big takeaways, as we're kind of recapping, getting ready for the season? Anything else really stand out besides the KJ Jefferson hate that from SEC medias as a week as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at the quarterback play, and I'm really impressed with so many of these guys. I mean, it feels like we spent the entire week just debating quarterback rankings because it's at the best place it's been in the SEC since at least 2013 and maybe even longer. And everybody kind of feels like they're getting disrespected right now. I mean, that was one of the other things that brought up with Tebow. He only has Hendon Hooker at number 5 in his quarterback ranking. He's talking about the disrespect that he's getting there. Everybody feels like they're getting disrespect because outside of Bryce Young at number 1, there's not really that consensus from like spots 2 through 8. But we got to see and talk to a lot of these quarterbacks at SEC Media Days, and I thought a lot of them were just really impressive dudes. I become more and more impressed with Hendon Hooker every time we talk to him. This is somebody who has had to overcome a heart condition that what he went through in 2019, was kind of allowed to play in an offense that best suits his skill set last year with Josh Heupel, and now returns as one of the best 10 quarterbacks in all of college football. And so getting to speak with him and kind of the reasons that he's been motivated and all the different things he's had to go through in college, I thought was impressive. Getting to speak with a guy like DK Joyner, who has been at South Carolina seemingly forever and was starting off as a 4-star quarterback recruit that was wanted by everybody in the country, and has transitioned into this role of receiver, special teams, run blocker extraordinaire who can also kind of fill in and play quarterback like he did in Duke's Mayo Bowl. I just became really impressed with a lot of these quarterbacks. Will Levis, KJ Jefferson, these guys handle themselves extremely well. Bryce Young, another one who, you know what, like, these guys have all eyes on them. They really do. And given all the distractions that NIL could potentially bring, I just think a lot of these guys are wired the correct way. I know that's kind of that's not necessarily a hot take to say that I think the SEC is in a great place with quarterbacks, but I just became more and more impressed with the guys that so many of these teams have under center.
Now, we didn't have the bombshell or breaking news happen during SEC Media Days because it ended on Thursday, but we got the news on Friday about the 18 Level 1 violations that happened under Jeremy Pruitt's watch at Tennessee. You know, I remember when the McDonald's bag story all came out, and I thought, there's no way that is actually true. That's too cartoonishly stupid. And now that you read through these violations, it is that cartoonishly stupid. They were that dumb in Knoxville when doing everything that they did that now is illegal. And Tennessee was so upfront about it. You know, they even gave the NCAA things that the NCAA didn't find themselves. Is that going to help Tennessee when it comes to the NCAA ruling, or is this just going to be another example of why ever help out the NCAA because they don't care either way?
Well, first of all, the dumb headlines about the McDonald's bag full of cash, as much as I wanted those to be true, according to what the NCAA found, those actually weren't true. They were providing McDonald's and $220 meals at the Golden Arches, but they weren't necessarily providing just bags of cash to recruits. But this is such a calculated move, and the timing of it is really interesting because, and I'm writing this column right now, it kind of feels like Tennessee might be shooting the moon. Now, I have no idea what the NCAA is going to decide, neither do you. And if you think you do, look at Mizzou, look at UNC in those cases of academic fraud, and then tell me you have any idea what the NCAA is going to do. Because it doesn't matter from a cooperation standpoint. History suggests that it's just kind of whatever side they wake up on that morning, on whatever side of the bed. So I look at this and I think, well, if Tennessee, with now 18 Level 1 violations, because remember, they were trying to get out of paying Jeremy Pruitt that $12.6 million buyout, which was the byproduct of an extension he signed just a few months before that 2019 season, and then Tennessee was able to kind of find a way out of it. I can't imagine that Jeremy Pruitt, who was fired with cause, is now going to be able to come up with any sort of settlement to get a piece of that $12.6 million. So if you just fired a coach without having to pay a $12.6 million buyout, if you end up not getting a bowl ban, which we'll wait and see what happens with that, and you don't have any of these major recruiting violations, which, again, remember, Tennessee has this bustling collective that is doing very, very well on the recruiting trail, then did you just kind of shoot the moon and have this $60,000 fee that you offered up to the NCAA to get out of all this? It kind of feels like that. I mean, I expect Tennessee to finish second in the East. All right, like they're in a fine position, and they overachieved last year. So if that's the cost that you paid for all of this, I actually think Tennessee kind of came out of this in the way that they intended to.
Some of it's also timing too, and I know so much of this occurred before NIL was a thing, and I also understand this has a lot to do with recruits too. But, you mentioned a phrase there that it feels like maybe this is the only thing that the NCAA will ever be able to enforce about. Now, who knows? It may end up going to the conferences anyway. Academics, that's it. Like, they're relaxing everything about the transfer portal, unless it deals with academics. Academic ineligibility might still be a thing that you can enforce. But you've pointed out how, the NCAA basically is like letting go of so much of the enforcement powers that they've had, I think because they're afraid of being sued more than anything else. Academics is like all that's left, that and Title IX.
Yeah, it's stunning. I mean, I think we are going to get to this place eventually wherein FBS breaks away from the NCAA and they're able to have a new enforcement agency. And my suggestion with that has been get this new playoff contract, if and when that happens, to cover the cost of whatever sort of enforcement agency you're going to want to have, whether it's, because this obviously costs money. It's $20 million to be able to devote to this enforcement agency so that they have the resources necessary to actually, enforce, which is what the NCAA says it's going to do, but actually doesn't, then that's a different discussion. But yeah, if we're in a different place 6 months from now, when Andy Staples brought up this point, our attitude, we're already kind of numb to, we're seeing $60,000 worth of benefits provided, and we're kind of like, oh, that's it? Like, they went to get their nails done, they went to this aquarium, they went to McDonald's, like, all right, cool. Like, these kids are getting, there are a lot of kids getting tens of thousands of dollars worth of NIL benefits, and, we don't really scoff at that. So perspective is everything. Tennessee might have just been able to find the exact right timing, and the fact that they were able to have this kind of prolonged investigation before having to settle with Jeremy Pruitt is another big part of this. So, yeah, this is just a weird story, and it could be a one of one, but I think if they get out of this without a bowl ban, man, there will be a lot of people saying Tennessee kind of lucked out in all of this.
Yeah, let's leave it there for now because we're right up against the break. But definitely at some point, Connor, we got to have a longer discussion about what a separate entity that focuses on football only could look like, because that could be very interesting. Thanks as always, Connor.
Partners at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's Wimbledon Finals, Major League Baseball, the latest fighting news, and even next season's early NFL futures. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code BLEAV. That's BLEAV to get the bonus and get into the action. Bet online, where the game starts.